Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, November 30th. Premier will speak very, very briefly this morning as Dr. Patterson has some significant updates on Nunavut's path, and we'll get right into questions. One question, one follow-up. Thanks.
Ula sa ko lumi nagadja November 30 sibulakti night to lumi hali malangayo da luta Patterson ako sa kalangayo na nabumati palya na ang nga niya persisitakoy
Nunavut miut ublaku chapapi ublumi hitaman inutane nuban na yo akatu tamam melukta arveni suti mana motikin lugo Nunavut ilwani 108 nuban na yo akatu matakwa ublumi motikin lugo kawi haktaw nikut nubang joakam na mangata 4,896 matakwa 712 huli malik daw yun nubat na yakang yung mga ata. Takwa ublumi mutikid lugo 73 Nunavut mute at nubat na yaka ko nito takwa hungilak to. Watch out na Dr. Patterson tuha kakang mata pidluan nato ni and ukagayakin na nato matana ukawayakataw naman. Kiheni tako Nunavut mo kauti wata katakwa bila ratanitit ako yana kutit matna pakka kayuhu ya maluhit then kiheni takwa anya talitit sikut malakoyo nginni maliglut atana nuban na ya nokai ni akatigo amma ai himaluta ino katibut menere Iqaluit Iqaluit amma malit Iqaluit takwa malakoyo matna ko hinunabun miu. Good morning. Today, Nunavut has 4 new cases of COVID-19, and they're all in Nunavut. Nunavut now has a total of 108 active cases of COVID-19. The total number of persons followed to date is 4,896, and there are currently 712 still being followed. 73 Nunavut mute have now recovered from the virus, and for that we are grateful. I know Dr. Patterson has some significant announcements on Nunavut's path, so I'll let him get that. Keep up the hard work, Nunavut mute. I'm impressed by your strength, courage, and dedication, and we have this. Let's all stay safe, stay well, and focus on everyone's health. Thank you, Nunavut mute.
Good morning. First, I would like to thank Nunavut for their patience and cooperation over the past 2 weeks as we work to contain the spread of COVID-19. This Wednesday, December 2nd, the restrictions we put in place following the outbreaks are set to be reviewed. In line with our commitments under Nunavut's path, my office has assessed the current situation and has determined that until we can be absolutely certain there is no longer community transmission of COVID-19 in Iqaluit, current restrictions will remain in effect for that community. This includes limited outdoor gatherings and indoor gatherings being essential services only, and restricted travel in and out of Iqaluit for the next 2 weeks.
Ula sa ko sibulak pa me kuyan na me ka rumayak kanu na bumiyod utakigun naksya si mamatay kayo katagun nak si mamatay lumakko ni pinaswa ko si mayo ni taman na sa maktay ulit itaw sa akin lugun no vadyo anak 19 taba ni pinatyo na ato mi December 2 tako ay isulit tabi itaw yu tako sa maktay ulit sinang mo kimi ko yaw gakan nila ato tako amalit tiwit pinang ras mayo no na bumatuyak palya ni nganot at labi ka kaway saksi mayo man na kano'y palya ni nganik nalo na sa lutillo nalo ila kaway laki lang nginitin ni tako ano nalin ni sa mapalya nginin ni nuvadyo at 19 akviani man na yung isulit tak beauty tao malitaw galit suliatan ni akto tayo kanino nangan ni tako ilagay yaw lutik isulit tak bihal lutik sila may katikatak to katsiyo ningit amalo ilo ani Pia kaya kalakit to ni Pia sa kao to ni Kiseni at we know that silutik amalo isulitak behak ti taulo ni tiki biugun nam ning aulak biugun nam ning alo akvia ta kuno ni makko ni pinasako siunak to ni
In Whale Cove and Rankin Inlet, where we do not have any indication of community transmission, restrictions will be eased. Starting Wednesday, December 2nd, the following measures will apply. Travel restrictions will be lifted, though we continue to strongly advise against non-essential travel at this time and remind Nunavummiut that travel into Aviat is still restricted. Outdoor gatherings are restricted to 50 people. Gatherings in homes are restricted to a household plus 10 people. Masks are strongly recommended. Indoor gatherings for community halls, conference spaces, and within government and Inuit organization facilities is restricted to 50% capacity, or 50 people. Recreation centers and gyms open to solo workouts only. Libraries open but no tours or group gatherings, and galleries open but no tours or group gatherings.
Tiga Joami kang sinang milo manayok naluna si mayo hangi nunalin sa magpalaning hindi tamakwe sulit tabiyo tayo malitaw gali khasuyaw garnerton pigaro ni pingat sang December 2 ko malitaw gali atulakton takwa ulat teligun namningin takwa kuya nataw ni ato kisane sangi yumi ko jiga kalwatin lutapi mariung ito ni pidjute khalotik awlakat takuyigat Nittu gumana yok ikhaitiga tuwilu Nunavummiut ako suli akvianot suli tikibiugun ng imat awlak biugun na kanilo. Sila may katikataon na tut isulit tabihak na tut 50 ugun na lutik. Ang ikakadyo yun ita ako isulit tabihak na tut ilumiyo katigit ang malukhakan ni nga gukulit. Matuwak si may na realinit. Matuwak si may na raham na mo atulay ko si mayugun. Sila Ilo ani katikhatam ni nunalin ni pingwabin ni katima view yun ni gavamakulo amalo ino itimi khutingin ni isulit tagbahang na ato 50 ugun na lutino katigi balo abakilo ni 50% ingin ni kipingwabe ramalo tamakwe khaila sakbit ino to view lutikisane khaila sakbe ugun na to ukalimaga habit matuyegun na to kisane takuyaga ila takunna titagun nang ito amalo ila katudja katigun na jang ito tamakwa galleries takuyaga habit matuyagun na to kisane upatagun na kati kamalo katinga yun katibigun na kati.
Places of worship may open to 50% capacity but no singing. All public playgrounds, municipal parks, territorial parks, and territorial park reserves may open, but buildings will remain closed. Arenas remain closed. Businesses and government offices can open. Physical distancing must be maintained. Personal service providers, with the exception of hairdressers and barbers, can open. Physical distancing must be maintained, and PPE, personal protective equipment, used upon request. Food services and licensed establishments may open for takeout and delivery service only. There must be 2 meters distance between all people in line and no more than 10 people in line at any time. In both communities, schools will move to stage 3 in the Department of Education's plan, and taxis can operate with 1 fare per trip and masks are mandatory.
Tamakotut sa bit matuyegun na sayot abangin ni inugigun na tangin ni inuharun na lutik kasi ani ingi hattaya hangito takwa kikulimano sila may surusang na pingwabit nunalin ni gavamaw yung mga bingit nunavu gavamangut kung ita mga bingit mga bilimalo matuyegun na to kasi ani ilok duangis suli matumagali ani kitok bit matumay nam naton Namin nakaptuyot kavamakulala bingit matuyegun naksidyo kisnani ino katigi takwa kanigiro at tele kataluti. Timi mo pijit sirauti agato ano yaligit kayokay lumatuyegun naksidyo. Kisnani ino katigi kanigiro at tele kataluti kamalo ato inaut sa kataluti timi mo sa pumiyagutin itut sirabiyo to ang aygutin. Nakilagay ng mapijit sirauti license kaktulo suliaw pa ila matuyegun naktut Kisani anit si viugunnarlu titikisai viugunnarlutillo. Takwa tuumeilus ne kanigilo teille kattareili ino katigili ma utakkiyo tammalu khulit utakki kattagillu tiatautsikku. Imerbili maat suli matumaneatun. Tamakkiinni nunaliinni ilinnearbi takwa pingayoanni matuyapalleanarmun ilinneatuliriyikkuut parnautinga malillugut matuyapalleaniartun. Taksi suli ila aulagunnartuut kisaaniat inutuuqattarluti ikimayingi tammalu matuarsimagiaqarluti asaagoorbiqanngitsumi.
For the remaining Kivalliq communities, along with Baffin and Kitikmeot regions, where there are no active cases of COVID-19, restrictions will also be eased. Starting Wednesday, December 2nd, there must be restaurants and licensed establishment will be open. There must be 2 meters distance between tables and no more than 6 people seated around each table. Elementary schools will be open. Middle and high schools combine classroom and remote learning. Nunavut Arctic College open at reduced capacity with masks. Outdoor gatherings are restricted to 50 people. Gatherings in homes are restricted to a household plus 15 people. Masks are strongly recommended in situations where they're not mandatory. Indoor gatherings for community halls, conference spaces, and within government and Inuit organization facilities is restricted to 50 or 50% capacity. Public swimming pools, recreation centers, and gyms are open to solo workout and lane swims. Hot tubs and saunas may also open. Theaters may open to 50 people or 50% capacity. And libraries, galleries, and museums may open with group sizes of no more than 10.
Let me see. I didn't see anything about restaurants.
Sorry.
Takwa singin ni kipalermino na linya malokikitalo mekitermiunilo manayok no vajuanak 19 tukaktin nagu esulit takbio yo kasuyaw gyam naloktud Pigerlo ni pingat sumi December 2 nirivit imerbilo matuyerun nagnatut 2 miru mi kanigilo at tayo katalo titakwa sangit amalo takwa 6 katinga katangilutit siba katigito ato ni sango yuni mikiyutaw naksano ilin nabi matuyerun naksiyut kitiani tunut amalo ilin nabi alo itakwa katiksok si malugi ilin nabi ilwani amalo ang kasimalo ti ilin nakpalagun nang nalaktun Nunavut sila to sabikut matuyerun nang natut ilay nangit kisani matuaksi magiakarlo ti asagor behangit tumi. Sila mi katigun nakatartut isulit takbekang nalaktut 50 gun narlutik. Takwa katikatartu ang ikariyaw yun itakwa ang ikamiyo katigi kakan nga go 50 gun nalasizo. Matuaksi ma ningi atuli kuyaw yu kisani tayo matiliyaw gutul latas mangitok. Takwa ilo ani katineo hatakto nunalin ni pingwabin ni katimaviyo ni gavamakut amalo inoy katudsi katigi pilirivingin ni esulit tabiham niya to 50 gun narloti ubalo 50% tigluting kikutuin na ita kikutuin namno puidyo warbin kipingwe yarbin ikailis arbin matayarun namna to inutuloti ikailis arbiyo hatarlotik amalo puidyo warbiyo gun narlotik Tako vinin nabi amalo tay ko kunak tu isanaw na aktaw yut matuyerun naksimiyo. Takiyak bit matuyerun naktu 50 gun nalutik ubalo nit abbakilo nigi 50% tingit ino habigi gun naktangata. Ukalimaga habit takuyaga habit matuyerun naksidot kisena hulit ungatano gun nangilutik katikat dakto.
Places of worship may open to 50% capacity. Singing is okay. All playgrounds, parks, territorial parks and park reserves may open. Arenas may open at reduced capacity. Businesses and government offices can open. Physical distancing must be maintained. All personal service providers can open. Physical distancing must be maintained with PPE used upon request. Food service and licensed establishments may open seated service at 50% of normal capacity. Taxis can operate with multiple fares if the first passenger consents and everyone wears masks. Keep in mind, a new outbreak of COVID-19 could impact any or all of these restrictions at any time. Please continue to practice social distancing, wash your hands, stay home when sick, and call the hotline if you develop symptoms. Everyone has a role to play in reducing the risk of COVID-19. Thank you.
Tamakotut serbit matuyerunnak siyut abangin inuhabigigunak tangina inikarunak lutik igni katigihatarunnak tutillo. Tako so sila mipingwa bid nunalin ni gavamayo na mingwesak bid gavamakullo mingwesak bingit matuyerunnak siyut. Annikitok bid matuyerunnak siyut tako isulitak bihak lutihat siyugunnak ningin. Namin ihaktiyot gavamakullo labingit matuyerunnak siyut inuhatigi kisya ni kanigilo at tayo lahatarlutik. Tako ati may mapigit sa kauti matuyerunnak siyut kisya ni inuhatigit kanigilo at tayo lahatarlutik ang malato inautit sa hatarlutik timi mo sa pumiyaw gutining. Nikilaki ng mapigit sa kauti ang malo license sa kauti inirbiyo yung matuyerunnak siyut ako 50% tingin ni inuharunnak luti inukigayot tangita. Taxi suliaw lagunnak tut inuharunnak luti at sigingit tu ni kisya ni na sibulak pa ikijumini angek si matuakat kikulimalo matuak si may nakayakang luti. Ikaman na ako sinutami David Joanasie 19 may pitakakan na katuigon ng tamak ko ni nga isulitak beauty tayo na hangatuin na siya. Kaya tako ay no katigit kanigit tailin na katakaswang na ako si agkasilawasay na katalo si ang malo ang ikas makatalo sa anya to ako siya malo ukala katalo si tatsu mga unga si tumiyo akikangit mo kanigot kalito ako bin kikuli mailaw katagun na nga tayo kayo kung nalo titaman na siya mapalya tayo likullo ko no David Joanasie 19 kaya na may
Kent Driscoll, PTN National News. Dr. Patterson, I've received reports from some of the affected communities of people within those communities who were supposed to isolate, not isolating. I'm wondering how many reports of that have you received at your office, and has anyone been fined yet?
Kent Driscoll, PTN kung niluta Patterson to sa si mamaguro daw si malunita ko na nino na linna anit tayo ko yaw si mayut anit tayo katangin mata. To sa law kaya katsi mga tamalo akiliti tayo kalaw mga.
No one's been fined, and I'm not aware of any formal complaints of people not isolating.
Akiliti tayo kalaw ngito amalo unerlo to kalaw ngito tamak ko nga anit tayo legalin ni nalang ito.
Minister Joanasie, please. Minister Joanasie, the EDSB platform, the online learning platform that the government of Nunavut licensed, the licensing fee is $100,000 a year, and you haven't been able to use it yet. I'm wondering, looking back, was the EDSB platform the right choice for Nunavut?
Minister Joanasie tan SP ilid na ako tayo hakisaya ko no nabuga pa makong ito $100,000 na akago tama license sita ako tigis maya nga ate ko na niulo sulitan na tanat siya ng yuminiw galawa kayo ni kawak taminisi.
Tana kakatawag ko rin na ako tiksaw yung tana ang gago tama akilak suto katagarik 111,000 ngulun eh. Tana do solo atoktaw nang niya lugo ilinyak tinut akaw di mamay tana temeli nga jo kamaro tana kami ko si maluta jiging ito ni Canada may marawit tok si mayo Nunavut tani ito ni tana kaw nakpangon nakaktaw si mama maro naman nakpangon luni tana kayo sigo tigi si mababu. The EDSB platform, the annual fee for it is $111,000, and based on that, this is for annual use, and this is to ensure that throughout the whole year that students are able to access the EDSB platform. Looking at the other jurisdictions on what options are provided for online learning, the EDSB platform was deemed the most effective and useful tool for our students in Nunavut.
Jackie McKay, CBC News. For Minister Joanasie, the 3,000 laptops that were ordered, did they ever make it during the lockdown, and if so, where were they?
Jackie McKay, CBC, kun ni Minister Joanasie, tako 3,000 hakisoya kalati kisang ulaw si mayo matumatilo tako nung atikiti tagun naksimabano nunaleno.
Tako man ko 800 nguye sulitamani Nunavut mitut amaro teko tikisaka si majabut utak kajabu suli kisani nirewid lutigo tabani December mi tikipalya naktut amaro kiakibit ko na tingito nirewid lutigo. To date, we have 800 iPads in the territory, and we're still dealing with the logistics on deploying to the affected communities. But with that, we are anticipating our orders starting to roll in as of this December and onwards, and this includes the internet capacity for those devices.
Thank you. Dr. Patterson, please. We've heard that the first fines related to breaching public health orders were given out to a local business. Are you able to confirm this and say what they were for?
To sa mayigo tako sibulak pa miya na nangitulakin na mo sa kimit siya kaktumini namin niya ni kausarigon na kayo.
Yeah, that was from a local business that repeatedly exceeded capacity under the public health orders.
Tako akiliti tayo yung halaw to tamani namin nakaktiyo ni ataw saya ka ni malikat tam ningin ma inu kakayakang ningin namin sulo katang ng ngata.
And to be clear, that business was in Iqaluit, and that was before the current outbreaks.
Tako namin nakaktiyo yung halaw ni tumini ang malumanaw yung sayang makto halaw pinagusuli tayo may tumini.
Are you able to say what business it is?
Nalang mga kakanak eh.
I'm not sure. I'm going to have to check on that. If we can reveal it, we will. Apologies.
Atso, kaya galaw lo ta to saktit sigala ko.
What does it mean that you're still finding new active cases since it's been so long since the first cases were detected?
May ganduling nunat sa akong ni kano tama na tuki kaka tama ko suli na lunata wala mata suli no vadyo anak takpalayo.
It's part of an infectious disease outbreak in crowded housing that will continue to, there is a chance that it'll continue to spread for a little bit even within the houses that we've identified.
Tama na ilagi yaw kayo mata makuno nga sa masunuan niya no yun no takwalo ilu may katigi may sulo atam ningin no pilo ang ako tao mayo. Tama na nalo nang ito sa mapalya niya ako tamak kuningang kami yung katigi ni.
I have a question for Minister Joanasie, please. You mentioned that there's 800 devices. Can you say clearly how many people in Arviat who will need them have internet and computers to learn from home?
Ukakaw bita ko 800 hakisaw yakalata ko tikisi malam ni kaksuti. Kasi nita ko kaya mabigat siya na mga tao biyang nurtaw si mayo tambalo hat siya mga tao hakisaw yak ilay kaya kivik ko na tili hakisaw yak ko ngak kamin mo.
Tako man 800 nguna rakta taka iPad ngudluti amaro ni gudluti go takyo nakta mo December mi 1,500 kanang ni hakisaw yakalani am iPad ni tikisay niya gudluta tako man ko Akviani idinyak takutibut kinako tigo 854 nguluti kisani takwa kutinnak sanut ilinyak tunut tukangan titawga kadang mata ukak si magata amaro Takwa pidira hanak pango unit tuang ti tawiang na matakakasawala. The 800 iPads that we have in our inventory, there's an additional, we're anticipating an additional 1,500 Chromebooks as well as iPads over the next month. And all these have internet capacity. If we're looking at Iqaluit specifically, there's 854 students in the school, but we'll be prioritizing for especially the higher grades and those students that need devices the most.
So how many are there now?
Katsiulik kamana.
So how many?
How many devices, like how many kids will be able to learn from home now? Will they be able to starting on Wednesday?
Tingat sumipigay akong nalakang, ikamenailin na akong nakunin.
Take 800 nguyit tabunga takko nang Nunavut na 19 hakto no tukang titaw so nyaktut pidara halak tan pang tilugeman nakut te medinga wok maro takko kutin naksano ngayut din naktinin tawtung waktaw. We're looking at deploying those 800 iPads specifically for those most impacted communities, especially to Iqaluit, and looking at the higher grade levels. I don't have a breakdown of how many will be able to have access as of Wednesday.
Thank you.
And we'll turn to the Canadian Press. Dr. Patterson, please. Dr. Patterson, you just announced reopening measures starting Wednesday. Some people are wondering why we're lifting restrictions when there's still active cases in Whale Cove and Rankin.
Whale Cove and Rankin. Dama trying to Canadian Press kun luta Patterson tako hos hakago vi matuta wala alam ni pingat sami sulita makosa mapalayo yakti lugis matamata baneti kirajami kanyang sinagmilo.
For Whale Cove and Rankin, we've identified all the houses that have cases of COVID-19, and all recent transmission in those two communities has been related to the people living in those houses.
Teka ni tikirajami kanyang sinagmilo nalo na sisimagat tatako ni nga ilumi yung katigi ni kisa ni sa mapalyan mataman na Novadjanak 19 Tamakosang mapalya niyo katalaw tutako na ni China isanin ilumi yung hatigi ni sa mapalya sa mama.
So the risk of it spreading elsewhere is small and less than the harms associated with the very strict measures that were in place or are in place.
Takolo ka naktumilo ako niyo sa mata sa makitsigod namningin kasi ni akaw ngili ko tikam sa tuwid na kaya kang atatamak ko asa go bakang ito ni ana kang nangito lang ng mamalitaw kaya gutibo.
Can you tell us then how many cases have recovered in Rankin and Whale Cove?
Ukakon nakikat si kanoy kun niya si mamanga takang yung sinang may tikirak jo amilo.
1 sec, we'll get the up-to-date number on that. So in Whale Cove, 7 individuals have recovered, and Rankin Inlet, it's 11 that have recovered.
Tikirak jo ami 7 kanoy kun niya nakaktaw si mayoy ang malukang yung sinang may 11 kanoy kun niya nakaktaw si mayoy.
Kent Driscoll, APTN National News. Dr. Patterson, you might have covered it in your opening statement, but if I'm getting some notes from people, so if you could go over this part again for us, that'd be great. What about daycares?
Yeah, the Premier caught that we forgot that one in the update, and apologies to everyone. Daycares can open without restriction in everywhere but Iqaluit.
Ita na sabilok tiyo kaya nga po ikong nakatigo ita ko kaya rivi matu ikong naksilok naktuid na mituid na agato ako gani.
Minister Joanasie, please. Minister Joanasie, when schools closed back in March originally, it wasn't hard to anticipate that we might end up in that situation again. And now it's December and we're in that situation again. You've had since March to plan for this situation happening again. And you talk about you were ready to deploy these laptops. Why aren't these laptops deployed and why isn't that online platform up? You've had since March.
Minister Joanasie, tako ilin na be matuyaw law tilugit ay sa mani March mi. Palungayak sa malawngin na siya tayo may kanilang may katatako. December mi tayo may nalag mitilugin. Pivit sa kalawat si March mi tako sa matuloy na utang ila kakisayak ko ilin na ako titsay.
Tana so lupang na si magata au jadi matya tabunga ukek sa mo tikid lugo ilin na bi ukik kanila tilugit. Pag nautitini nalanak si Madluta tako ang kami ilin nang nakajing ito niyang man so luka ka sa ko nakpata ilang I ka sa ko kataon ng natut amaro tikisa ka si Madluta ko tako ilang tikipadle niya ito amaro tikisi malakotit tuniyan tiara ka taon na gumiyon tako akakan ng milunga pinaswa ko sa kilak tatini gawa matukak kuno kinalaktak ito kanila magata ilin niya tulakin ng mo tana 1.18 million tana tukang kakasaw jakalan ito kisay bigit ka ng namin yung 1,192 ni kisay naman na ilin niya na adjing ito tilugo paypak ko adila yukut ato katak tilugit kuyan namin ko natiyak katak ko ilin niya kami piligraduate adjing ito ko tamko ng ilin niya ko tiksanit sakay si mamata amaro tunok ka si maluti ilin niya ko tiksinno ilang isoklo niwag binni tunok kaktaw katak sa tibalo ni nuwataw katak sa tit ubalo ni titak kanyak bit ko tigot tako sa maktitaw katak tut ilin niya ko tiksay taman na takuminak to amaro susak bagi kan na umanak to temen na ito ni we would have to recognize that in our school opening plans we've had developed all throughout the summer. It's going to look different. Remote learning is going to look different for all schools and every student. And this includes, it doesn't necessarily mean remote learning means computers. It means that it's going to have different forms. There's learning packages that have been developed and we've been using to date. And of course, this is will be assessed and looking at how we best utilize these learning packages. Further to the devices that we currently have and will be receiving in the very near future. Last week, the federal funding that was announced, there's 1.18 million earmarked for education. This will provide our department, we plan to purchase an additional 2,192 devices. So that totals up to over 5,000 devices and we'll be sharing with our students as soon as practicable. With that, I want to thank all the school staff that have worked very hard to ensure that no student gets left behind in their learning. I've been hearing some great different setups of schools having being creative and supportive of our students. So we're setting up drop boxes at their local stores, or in Pangnakdo, they had learning packages delivered through the post office. These are great to see, and on behalf of the students receiving them, I thank you.
Jackie McKay, CBC News. You can stay right there. Can you just clarify that for all communities except for Arviat, that they're entering stage 3 of the school plan, and how long will they be in that stage?
Jackie McKay, CBC, kung ito kasi naktigya kayo nakauta ko, ilin na be matipalera ng ningin ni agato ak veni ta ko hukti nili tali me matipalera mo nalunay ko tani.
Takwa kangit sinong mit amaro tikirak jwa takwa stage 3 min nang naktaw si mayuk takwa udlo ilin nang ilin na kattakalaktut nalunak si mayuk takwa pang nauti nalunak si mayangin maliluwit according to Dr. Patterson's office, it's Rankin Inlet and Whale Cove that are in stage 3. And according to the opening plans, the schools in those communities would be following those guidelines set out in the plans.
So for non-infected communities, what stage are the schools in?
Tako na linik kaya nung alinatok tao sa mga ito ni nalani kaptan ni nga nina kamataya pala mo.
Tako asi di mangit nunali tayo tao si mga tunit so akbe tikiraw diwa marukang sinyo sila tanit tut stage 2 min naktun. All other communities outside of Akbe, Rankin Inlet, and Whale Cove will be in stage 2.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson, please. Would you be able to provide an update on the Red Cross team in Arviat and if they made it and how it's going there?
Tako lumi mo kanu ilang mga tao kaya kung naki Red Cross ko to avang naktuliriyak veno kayo kaya to tay kung tikis malakhan.
Yeah, they landed yesterday. There's 2 staff in Aviad right now, and they're concentrating on higher impact or higher risk areas where improving infection prevention and control or reviewing it and improving weaknesses will be most beneficial. And yes, I'm certain.
Ipat sa tikilak tayo kung amakro kanayak tiyak pianot. Tako tawag kaluar na ato tamakko kanat taon ila sa makbiu nikpango gayak tunik. Tako alo piu si balak tit sinang munok hangat tit sigasawang ng muwa. Aulat sinang mo sa mapalya niyo yume.
This is for the Premier, Savikataaq Timur. Tema CBC kuninga nga tobe utaw yanga. Tema Nunavut mamit nunarit nakhinit tunnaksay katang mata. Tema nganin nukkarok titligo gisirimat. Ikarung niri kanuilyong narakpat. Tusaw magama titirak daw si mayunit. Nakhinitun naksak daw katangi mata ilinak tilo as ikarung ng mute. Kanwilyo rigavat tamani. Since the lockdown happened, there's been hampers that's been distributed to Nunavut, every community. What about in Iqaluit? What will happen? I've seen posts stating that there's no hampers delivered to college students or other people in Iqaluit. What will happen in Iqaluit?
Matna, tema takwa nunali nakini tuna kaitaktu inokoting takwa hamla kunni ubaluba takwa nakilagabi food bank alumni tunihit tamata. Tema ikpakani kalawa mata ko Iqaluit 100,000 ta na mata ta na sidik kunolani ta na sidik kut ihumakon na mata ta na kinaw ya nakamutora to kano tuniyaw na mga Iqalumyon. Thank you. The communities that have been given out food hampers in the communities, they have done it with their own initiatives, either the municipalities or the food banks or other organizations. As I stated last week, Iqaluit is going to get $100,000, part of our Nunavut-wide food security funding we are giving the communities, and the city of Iqaluit will decide how they want to distribute that $100,000 that is earmarked for food for Iqaluit.
Megan Dooling, Nunatsiaq News. Do you have an update on that federal money? Do you know when you'll have it and be able to go ahead with the contribution agreements that you talked about last week?
Megan Dooling Nunatsiaq kun nitay ko ako sa kalaw tatika pamatakak kun nikinaw yakta ngun yakto ato inaw niyaka kinaw yakta na mo ang yakatigay ko tikon.
Thank you. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have it in our possession yet, but we should have it this week. And as soon as we get it, contribution agreements are all filled out and will be sent out to each community so that they can have access to that money right away. Kawi maya kuman na ta na kinaw yak tigumeng itabuhuli ki han angak taw himayo ta na kinaw yak pit na twa tigo ta ko ham na kuluk ta kinaw mituni yak te ta ko atiliu kat pianik himayun.
And there's a federal economic update tonight. What do you hope to see for Nunavut in that?
Ako ako gamata kako kinaw yala rin ang maunno ukaw sa kalangan matakisun ni Rupino na bumbo.
I hope there'll be more assistance package for Nunavut. Nireo tu ngata ko kinaw na ta chikar na mata gamay to kakut.
Me too.
Emma Tran to the Canadian Press. Dr. Patterson, please. You touched on this a bit earlier, but now that it's been about 2 weeks since we've locked down, can you tell us a bit about what Nunavut's recovery is looking like? Is it headed in the right direction? What can we expect to see next?
Emma Tran to Canadian Press ko nilo ta Patterson house hakag bita ko makopin sa ako si ani gulak tilugi matuyaw sa malaw ni tinni kano ni Rupita man Nunavut mi kano igun ni palet sa ma bita amaloking ulang mi kano ni Riunaka.
Hopefully, as we see transmission chains stopped, the number of active cases will stop increasing and recoveries will continue. And that'll allow us to alter the measures in place in Rankin Inlet, Whale Cove, and Aviat. We will probably keep the measures that we've announced today for the other communities. We'll probably keep them where they are while the numbers are so high in other jurisdictions, because there's always going to be that increased risk of COVID-19 being introduced.
Taman na isa manak to galaw tamakko sa mapalagun ni khundugi ta ko ala misung mapalagun ni khulugi no fadjang naktakat taktun tamakko takko malit to gita ko sa pala hatalanga yavu malit to gali te kanilo kangarsinang me tikirak jo me arvenilo takko atay nam na to galaw malit to gali asingin ni nunalin ni takko pejutigilo asingin ni kanatay me sula mi swalo mata. I
shouldn't have said always. I should have said as long as the numbers are high in the south, which depends on stuff outside of our borders.
I already said that.
Thank you.
Can you give us an update? Has anyone been hospitalized? Does anybody have any symptoms that they've needed to see a doctor for at this point?
Ukakong nakitigo tako haan ang bialon no unit to kak mga laos sa mga kanimalo ang nagkamutamato mo nga.
No Nunavut, like inside Nunavut, have had to be medevaced out or hospitalized because of COVID-19.
Tamani no navumito ni agaw nito kalaw nito balo ka nga tayo ko to avang naktukok tao kaya kalaw nito nuvadya nak 19 mo.
Kent Driscoll, EPTN National News. Just to follow up on Emma's question, when you look at the amount of cases that we have, if you compared that to another jurisdiction, you would have probably expected some hospitalizations by now. What accounts for Nunavut's low rate of hospitalization under this COVID wave?
Kent Driscoll, EPTN ko nita ko emo at kutigatak tanga tamak ko nuvadya naktakat tatilugit. Niriyo na kayak tuya kalawang nga tayo ana bialo mo unit to kakayang nga ni sumakya nga tayo may tanila no navumi unit to kalawang nila tamato mo ano na 19 pinlugo.
The single biggest factor is the age of people who are getting infected. The vast majority, like well over half, I should say, of the cases that have been infected in Nunavut are people who are under 40 years of age.
Ana pedyo tayo lang ang tutako kyung ihatsi katang mga tamisunir sa abang nga tani ito nuvadyo naktak sa mayo nunavumi ukiyo kas sa mayo 40 ito nga nilo.
Quinnipiac, Minister Joanasie, please. Minister Joanasie, one tool that teachers will use occasionally with their students is self-evaluation. How do you think you did on this assignment? I'll ask you, how do you think the Department of Education has done facing the challenges you're facing through COVID-19?
Minister Joanasie, tako ilit na atit sige ato sung matay manam mene kawi sa kumnaner mo kanu tigili pala tigi mga ta ibili kanu tayo mga kanu itsimawit an ila ilit na tuliriyik ko tamakwa at surok naktuk ko kutakak tiluta no wadjak nak 19 mi kanu pilirit sa tigi simasuri bigi.
Dan ilipalya ko tigila kasi malabu tayo sa mani upang nagsami March upkuwalak sa matilugo Nunavut taman na iliguti si malabu soklo kanok pinyak pita teme kanarahan na rutta tay ko pang nauti pang nara si mabubuti man na amara tulok tipalya si malutigo matu si manitinni tay marasuli sibumut pang nakkan unna sigibugut takwa kanok atulok titawuti kanok pilrere kanarun ng mga tigo Nunavut mo soklo ko linnak takotibut Pimario na pako ilinyang ningi kayo si tiga suakat tigo dana naukut piwala kanaron ng mga ta isimaksak sa kanaron ng naktabu. We did learn quite a lot from the initial shutdown in March, and this has been a ongoing thing where we put in place the school reopening plans and developed action plans to support the implementation of those plans, and this is going to go onwards. The 2 weeks shutdown is another effort that we have been able to look back and say what worked, what didn't, and maybe how can we improve upon the next time we have to go through this. So this will be an ongoing process, and I commend all those that have been a part of that planning and developing those resources and guidelines and ensuring that everybody's on the same page for when the shutdown occurs, and moving forward, looking at ahead of time, how can we learn from our past experience.
Megan Dooling, Nunavut News. I have a question for Dr. Patterson, please. Do you have any updates on the origin of COVID-19 in Nunavut, how it might have gotten in here?
Megan Dooling nunat sa kun ito sakat sa kakita ko nakingalak ito may mga nawadjak nak 19 no nabumuk sa mayo.
Nothing specific beyond what we've already said.
Lalo na ito sa malaking ito tako ako sa kilak tatas sa fulang mitay matsay na.
Thank you.